Tater tots. Tater tots were invented in 1953 by two brothers who founded Ore-Ida in Oregon. They had leftover potato scraps from cutting French fries and instead of discarding them, chopped the scraps, mixed them with flour and seasoning, and extruded them into small cylinders. They sold the first bags for 10 cents. Americans were initially reluctant to pay for what looked like potato scraps. Ore-Ida lowered the price to almost nothing and gave them away. Once Americans tasted them, full-price sales followed immediately. Today, Americans consume approximately 70 million pounds of tater tots per year.
Curly Fries. Curly fries were invented by Arby's in the 1980s using a specialized spiral cutting blade. The increased surface area creates more crispy edges per fry than any straight cut can produce. Arby's seasoning blend of paprika, garlic, and onion powder became so associated with the shape that competitors who released their own curly fries were consistently described by customers as tasting like Arby's regardless of the seasoning used. A cutting blade and a spice blend created such a specific eating memory that the shape alone triggers the flavor. Curly fries are now one of the most recognized fast food side dishes in America.
Scalloped potatoes. Scalloped potatoes appear on more American holiday tables than almost any other side dish. Thinly sliced potatoes baked in cream and cheese until the top layer crisps and the interior becomes soft enough to serve with a spoon. Food historians believe the name comes from the scallop-shaped dish it was originally baked in, rather than any connection to the shellfish. Every American family has a version and considers every other family's version slightly wrong. The argument about whether scalloped potatoes and au gratin potatoes are the same dish has never been resolved and shows no signs of progress. Sweet potato fries. Sweet potato fries became a mainstream American menu item in the 2000s when restaurants needed a healthier-sounding alternative to regular fries. Sweet potatoes contain more fiber and vitamins than white potatoes, but when deep-fried in oil and served with dipping sauce, the health advantage largely disappears. Americans ordered them anyway because the menu descriptions sounded better. Sweet potato fries are technically more difficult to fry than regular fries because their higher sugar content causes them to burn faster. Most restaurant versions are slightly soggy as a result. Customers accept this because they already decided they were eating healthy. Poutine. Poutine was invented in rural Quebec, Canada in the late 1950s, and Canadians spent decades being embarrassed by it. French fries, fresh cheese curds that squeak when you bite them, and hot beef gravy poured over the top. The cheese curds must be fresh enough to squeak. If they don't squeak, it's not poutine. American fast food chains discovered poutine in the 2000s and put it on menus across the northern United States. Canada went from embarrassed to territorial about their dish within a single decade. A rural Quebec truck stop food is now served at upscale restaurants in New York City with truffle and foie gras on top. Loaded mashed potatoes. Loaded mashed potatoes take the most basic comfort food in American cooking and add everything that makes it more caloric and more satisfying simultaneously. Bacon, cheddar cheese, sour cream, chives, and butter mixed into mashed potatoes until the original vegetable is barely detectable beneath the toppings. The loaded format became standard at American steakhouses in the 1980s alongside the loaded baked potato. Applebee's, TGI Fridays, and every casual dining chain in America put their own version on the menu within years of each other. A side dish became a meal. Nobody complained about this development. Potato salad. Potato salad exists in two completely incompatible versions in America, and both sides consider the other wrong. Southern potato salad uses mayonnaise, mustard, and sweet pickle relish, served cold. German potato salad uses bacon drippings and vinegar, served warm. The debate about which version is correct at a summer barbecue has the same energy as political arguments. Every family has the one aunt whose potato salad is considered definitive. Challenging her recipe is not recommended. Americans make over 1.5 billion servings of potato salad per year. The argument about which version is correct has never moved closer to resolution. Cheese fries. Cheese fries are exactly what they sound like, and that simplicity is the entire point. French fries covered in melted cheddar or processed cheese sauce. The processed cheese sauce version, made from Velveeta or similar products, became standard at American sports bars and stadiums because it stays liquid at room temperature and coats every fry evenly. A cheese that technically requires no refrigeration and never fully solidifies became the default topping for one of America's most ordered bar snacks. Food scientists created it for processed food manufacturing. Sports bar owners realized it was perfect for fries. Customers never asked questions. Hasselback potatoes. Hasselback potatoes were invented in 1953 at the Hasselbacken restaurant in Stockholm, Sweden, by a culinary student named Leif Ellison, who was looking for a new way to present roasted potatoes. The potato is cut into thin slices almost all the way through, leaving the base intact, then roasted with butter and breadcrumbs so the slices fan open like pages of a book. The dish remained a Swedish restaurant specialty for decades until food bloggers discovered it in the 2000s, and it went viral across America. A 1953 culinary school experiment became a social media sensation 60 years later because it photographs beautifully. Clam Chowder. New England clam chowder is the soup that started a legal dispute between two states. New England clam chowder is creamy and white, made with clams, potatoes, and cream. Manhattan clam chowder is tomato-based and red. In 1939, a Maine legislator introduced a bill that would have made it illegal to add tomatoes to clam chowder anywhere in the state of Maine. The bill failed, but the sentiment never went away. Boston and New York still argue about which version is correct. San Francisco serves clam chowder in a sourdough bread bowl as a tourist attraction. 3 cities, 1 soup, 0 agreement. Au gratin potatoes. Au gratin means with cheese in French, and the dish is thinly sliced potatoes layered with cream and melted cheese baked until bubbling and golden. The French technique arrived in American holiday cooking through mid-20th century cookbooks and became a staple of Thanksgiving and Christmas dinner tables. The difference between scalloped and au gratin is technically the cheese. Scalloped uses cream sauce without cheese. Au gratin adds cheese on top. Most Americans use the terms interchangeably. Most French people would find this conversation exhausting. Potato knish. The potato knish is a New York City institution that most Americans outside the Northeast have never encountered. A thick dough pocket filled with mashed potato and onion, baked or fried until golden. Eastern European Jewish immigrants brought the knish to the Lower East Side of Manhattan in the late 1800s. Yonah Schimmel's Knish Bakery on Houston Street has been selling them since 1910 and still operates today. At their peak in the mid-20th century, knish street carts were as common in New York as hot dog stands. Today, they are a nostalgic food that New Yorkers defend with the intensity of people who feel their culture is disappearing. French fries. French fries are not French. They were invented in Belgium in the late 1600s when villagers along the Meuse River began frying small fish. When the river froze in winter and fish became unavailable, they cut potatoes into fish shapes and fried those instead. American soldiers stationed in Belgium during World War I encountered them, assumed they were French because the Belgian army spoke French, and brought the name home. Belgium has been correcting this mistake for over a century. Nobody is listening. McDonald's now sells more French fries every day than Belgium produces potatoes in a week. Mashed potatoes. Mashed potatoes were considered peasant food for most of history. The potato itself was introduced to Europe from South America in the 1500s, and Europeans spent 2 centuries refusing to eat it, believing it caused leprosy, fever, and moral decline. France only accepted the potato after a chemist named Antoine-Augustin Parmentier staged a publicity stunt in 1787, planting a potato field guarded by soldiers during the day and leaving it unguarded at night so locals would sneak in and steal what the king was supposedly protecting. The theft strategy worked. France started eating potatoes. The rest of Europe followed. Loaded baked potato. The baked potato existed for centuries as simple peasant food. The loaded version, topped with sour cream, bacon, cheddar cheese, and chives, was invented in American steakhouses in the 1950s and 1960s as a side dish that could justify a higher menu price. Wendy's introduced the loaded baked potato to fast food in 1983, and it became one of their most iconic menu items for decades. A baked potato costs pennies to produce. A loaded baked potato costs dollars to sell. The toppings are worth more than the potato. American restaurants understood this immediately. Hash browns. Hash browns were invented in the northeastern United States in the late 1800s as a way to use leftover boiled potatoes. The name comes from the French word hacher, meaning to chop. McDonald's introduced its hash brown patty in 1977, and it became one of the most recognized fast food items in the world. In Britain, a similar dish called bubble and squeak uses leftover cabbage and potato fried together. Switzerland has rosti, South Korea has gamjajang. Every culture that discovered the potato eventually figured out that frying leftover potato pieces was one of the best ideas available. Waffle fries. Waffle fries were invented by Chick-fil-A in the 1980s as a way to differentiate their side dish from every other fast food chain selling standard French fries. The grid pattern is created by rotating the potato 90 degrees between each slice on a specialized mandolin cutter. The increased surface area creates more crispy edges per fry than any other cut. Chick-fil-A's waffle fries became so associated with the chain that when competitors tried releasing their own versions, customers consistently described them as Chick-fil-A fries regardless of where they were purchased. A cutting technique became a brand identity. Potato wedges. Potato wedges are baked or fried potato quarters with the skin left on, seasoned and cooked until the exterior crisps while the interior stays fluffy. They became a staple of American casual dining chains in the 1980s as a heartier alternative to French fries. KFC's potato wedges, introduced in the 1990s, became one of their most ordered sides globally. When KFC removed them from the US menu in 2020 to replace them with secret recipe fries, the backlash was immediate and sustained. KFC brought the wedges back in select markets after customer complaints reached to the level of a minor public relations crisis. Twice-baked potato. The twice-baked potato requires baking a potato, scooping out the flesh, mixing it with butter, cheese, and sour cream, stuffing it back into the skin, and baking it again. The process doubles the cooking time and triples the calorie count. It became a staple of American dinner parties in the 1950s and 1960s, when elaborate side dishes were considered a sign of good hosting. The twice-baked potato requires significantly more effort than its appearance suggests, which is precisely why serving it communicated something about the cook. Today, it appears on steakhouse menus across America, priced at a level that makes the effort economically rational. Potato skins. Potato skins were invented at TGI Fridays in the 1970s as a way to use the part of the potato that was being thrown away after making mashed potatoes and baked potatoes. A cook named Donna Rosenthal reportedly suggested keeping the skins, filling them with cheese and bacon, and selling them as an appetizer. TGI Fridays tested the idea, and it became one of the most ordered appetizers in American casual dining history. The potato skin transformed kitchen waste into a menu staple. Every sports bar in America serves some version of it today, and none of them invented it. Potato chips. Potato chips were invented in 1853 in Saratoga Springs, New York, by a chef named George Crumb. A customer repeatedly sent his fried potatoes back to the kitchen, complaining they were too thick and soggy. Crumb, frustrated, sliced the potatoes paper thin, fried them until crispy, and salted them heavily as a sarcastic response. The customer loved them. The dish spread across the country and became one of the most consumed snack foods in human history. Americans eat over 1.5 billion pounds of potato chips per year. A chef's act of frustration created a global industry worth over $30 billion.